Stephanie?
Oh. Meet the girl.
So I want to thank Stephanie for her presentation. I really enjoyed that. And so I want to do a little introduction for Najib. We actually met each other at that house over there. We were roommates just by chance. And he got very interested in personal growth, and I kind of helped him. And what was most interesting to me is that he went on a trip around the world, and he was basically broke at the time. Like broke university student, in debt and stuff like that. And he ended up going to Israel and kind of was at this place where it's like, he was with a friend and they were kind of just sitting and complaining and moaning and whatever. And he had to decide, is that what this trip is going to be? Like, I'm just going to be stuck in this place with my negative friend, and you mean I'm not going to do anything, or am I going to go have an adventure? And he ended up picking like the latter and went to Israel, went to Jerusalem, not really knowing what's going on. And they've got kind of military and guns everywhere, and it's a little sketchy, and kind of went through some experiences with like breaking into some holy sites because God told him to do it, and kind of going through that is quite an adventure. But then he ended up going through like a whole trip around the world, going to Greece, going to Japan, and doing a workaway program where it's like you'd go to a place and get free rent and food for working for 4 to 6 hours a day or something like that, and kind of made it work for a year, which to me I have massive respect for. So yeah.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the hero's journey, which is, in my opinion, the ultimate transformation. And so we're going to go through a couple of the steps here. So just to begin with, the hero's journey is cylindrical or spirals, right? And so typically what we have here is that you finish kind of high, in a better place than you start, assuming you go through all of the steps. And there's quite a bit of steps, and we won't go through all of them in this presentation, but I will post this online later on and you can take a look through. So moving on, a little bit of crowd participation. So some examples on the board, and just curious, like, who are some of your heroes? If anyone wants to go.
Can I go through the whole?
Yeah, sure. So Fahad.
Are we talking like fictional?
Fictional, real life as well.
No, I'm trying to think.
Do you want to start with yours, Najib?
Sure. I mean, I have a few. So most of them are on the presentation already. I really love this rendition of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Really amazing film that I just showed to my some of my students as well. We have, The Lion King is really good. But in terms of real people, like, I really like the story of Malcolm X. For him to grow up in the Great Depression, lose his father when he was very young, and to live in a time where the relationship between whites and blacks in America is very difficult, to go up through a life of crime and then in prison to reform himself, to figure out that, wow, who am I as a person? Like, I can't read or write properly. I can't even write a letter. To educate himself in prison and then to transform and come out as one of the most inspirational, powerful speakers of his generation. Still to this day, he's still remembered for that. So in terms of real life human beings, he's definitely one of my heroes. But yeah, if anyone wants to start, do we want to start on this side then?
I go.
Alex? Okay, fine.
One person I think is a hero in my own personal life, I think, would be my grandfather. And that's because he when he was young, he didn't like where he was living. He was going through a lot in his home country of India, and he got stuff done. Like, he had kids at the time, and he was in his 20s, right? My mom and my uncle and stuff. And he went through a lot. Like, he fought police corruption, government corruption, and he went through. I can't go into details right now, but like, it was basically he could have died getting his family here to Canada. And he did so much just so that, he tells me this, he wants me and his grandchildren to live honest lives. Because back there you have to be more dishonest when you're facing corruption with the government and stuff. So he went through so much to build a better life for his prodigies, right? So to me, I think, he left his kids and his grandkids, and even himself now, he lives here, and he bought a house and probably living for the rest of his life. He built that for himself, and that kind of inspires me, that he saw a future for his kids and stuff here, and he went through all that just to give someone else a future. So that is someone who is my hero, I think I'd say.
Awesome. Wendy, do you want to give it a go?
Oh, my I need to go home and think and write. There are so many people that are my heroes, but this is a good thought. I'm going to go home and really think about who my heroes are.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Jenny, do you want to give it a go?
Yes. So my real life heroes that to me are my friends in Indonesia. I have been on charity now for almost 2.5 years now. So every month I donate my money to help. I don't have children myself. I'm just a single person. Just work hard and play hard and travel and stuff. So but two of my friends are they go they live in Indonesia and they go and find 70% of people I help, they die because they can't make it. They're so sick. A lot of them are children, and it really breaks my heart. I help them. I video call with them, give them the money, and they're pretty much on their deathbed. So it crushes my heart every single time. So when I see children die like that, it's heartbreaking. I'm just like, you know what I mean? Why? Why why children have to go through that? You know what I mean? Anyway, so my friends are real life heroes because they just donate their time. Everyone's volunteer. I donate my money because I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to live, to have a good job, to be healthy, to make a difference. But yeah, these two guys are they find people with cancer, seniors that most people, I hope they scavengers. They live in garbage, they live in the dumpster. So when I go there in a few months, I move there, I would go there and visit them.
You are their hero.
Thank you. But they're a real life hero because they see a lot of stuff that we don't. North American here will live in a bubble. We don't see things. I'm from Singapore. I'm very lucky that I have a chance to travel around Asia and see. I've seen a lot of things that I'm like, oh my God, we don't get to see things like that over there, and I've traveled a few times there. So I'm thinking, yeah, those people are just, they don't, they travel by train, by bus, whatever, and I'm just gonna donate my time, and I donate my money, we're like a team together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you so much, guys, I don't know how they do it, but they do it. They just how do you see a little kid dying in front of you, and not, you know what I mean? That's to me, they're my hero, the real life heroes.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Trent, do you want to add?
Yeah, so mine's not as emotional as that, but it'd probably be Merlin from the King Arthur legend, is that he was kind of the architect of this, bringing King Arthur up and kind of creating this kingdom. And that's what I'm actually trying to do in a lot of sense, is that I don't actually want to manage the kingdom myself. It's no, but to see that and to see kind of that peace and prosperity and bring that to the world is a very exciting thought to me. So that's probably my number one hero.
Thank you, Peter.
My hero is, aside from Stephanie, is somebody you guys have probably never heard of before, and his name was Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. He was the colonel of the 20th Maine Volunteer Regiment, and they were in a pitched battle on the second day of a 3-day battle in Gettysburg in the American Civil War. And he was assigned the far left flank, and he was told to defend this flank at all costs. And this is what he did. So they ran out of ammunition. The 15th and the 44th Alabama regiments kept coming through the woods, kept coming. They ran out of bullets. What do we do now? So he said, fix bayonets. We're going to charge down. We're going to sweep like a gate. And I saw this when the movie first came out in 1993. It was a Ted Turner production, 4 hours and 7 minutes. Boring. 3/4 of the people left the theater, but I was transfixed with 7 minutes of this man's actions. And so I got all the books I could find on Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. Found out he grew up in, I believe it was Brunswick, Maine. He had 2 brothers. His mother, I think, was a Quaker, but he became a professor of rhetoric and natural and revealed religion at Bowdoin College. And the more I read about him, the more I wanted to emulate this man and the difficulties he had in childhood. His father and two brothers, there was a huge boulder. How do we move this boulder? And his father said, simply move it. And they moved it. But he relates in his autobiography that all of these life lessons came to that moment on the little round top in Gettysburg, south of Gettysburg. And this was a man who volunteered. He was on a sabbatical in Paris, France, prior or during the outbreak of the Civil War. And he had no military instruction, but he learned from his own life and his own instruction to apply that to his troops. And just a fascinating man. So he literally was my mentor in 1993, and planted a seed for me, and my life took a different direction.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you want to give it a go?
See, I'm kind of on my spirituality, Christianity kick, so it'll be Jesus Christ is my hero, and I became fascinated by his story and just reading all the books I can about him and how he seems to be like this personification of divine love, and how because a lot of times when we look at religion or spirituality, it's this theory of how things should be, but then the story of Jesus Christ shows how those theories is applied in real life and how it can look like, and it inspires me to live in a different way of letting go of fear and instead like letting, I guess, love guide me, and yeah, so that's my hero.
Thank you. Annika, would you like to try?
I've never actually really thought about it, but I think who inspires me is my grandma. She was a elementary school teacher, and yeah, that's one of the aspects, because I'm also in like childcare and education. So the stories she told me was different time, obviously, but she was so invested and she cared so much. That's how I would like to be. And yeah.
Thank you. Alex?
Deep. I think in growing up, there wasn't any particular person, but I want to say that the hero in my life exists in everybody. It's the compassion and courage of the human spirit when people do their best. As simple as a mother compassionately talking to a child as they are working through their emotions in a grocery store, but in a human way, but not like yelling at them and telling them to be quiet. Or when people give more than they can give, or as much as they can give, or when someone pulls a $5 from a wallet to give to a homeless person. It's just like, it exists everywhere. And so like, yeah, and sometimes it's to be brave and do something that you wouldn't normally do, to reach out or step up, to be then thrust yourself into a situation that you wouldn't normally put yourself in because it's the right thing to do. Those are moments like I see in day-to-day life that inspire me and stay in my memories of each person that I've ever encountered. It's like when I think about them, it's the one thing that comes to mind is something that they did that was heroic to me. So that's how heroes are.
Thank you, Alex. Wendy, do you want to give it one last try?
Well, I go back, and it's my grandfather. He was from Slovakia, and he came to Canada like 3 times to, work land and stuff like that, and it took 3 times to bring his family here. And what that man accomplished in his life, but what he had to pay for it is sad. He had lots, but he just, he did. Our family would not be where we are if it wasn't for my grandfather. So that's my hero. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. So we'll continue on. So the hero's journey is characterized by three main components. We have the departure, the initiation, and the return. So today we're going to focus just on the departure and just some small aspects of it. And I will add, so is anyone here familiar with the work of Joseph Campbell? So he's done a lot to develop this aspect of the hero's journey. The hero's journey was also worked on by particularly Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung as well. Okay? And so within the departure, we have a few steps here. We have the call to adventure. We have refusal of the call, the supernatural aid, we have crossing the threshold, and the belly of the whale. So we're going to talk about the first four today. And so given that this is a personal meetup group, you know, we've all to some extent been called to adventure in our lives, you know, whether it was something as simple as, you know, transitioning from high school to university, college, or whatever is beyond, to traveling, whatever travel we've done, finding different jobs to work, coming from Germany to Canada, or, you know, with Fahad and I, like the transition out of our religious community as well. You know, we have these calls to adventure that we go on. And for myself, as Trent had mentioned, for me, the call was a very literal call. You know, my friend's parents had called him and said, hey, listen, like, we really appreciate what you've done for our son over the last few months. Like, you need to come to Israel so we can return that favor to you. And I laughingly agreed, thinking like, oh, that's never going to happen. But yeah, I'll say yes to make them happy. But once that call is given, it truly just stays in your mind, and you continue to think about, well, could I actually do this? Could I make this happen? And if I could, what would I need to do? What would I need to figure out to achieve this call and to answer it? Okay, and so following that literary narrative, you know, in our lives, oftentimes it does happen that we refuse the call. You know, you are told to, hey, come to Israel, like, we want to return the favor. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll see you sometime, right? Or, you know, the place you're working, things aren't working out and you're not getting treated the same way, and so you get this call to adventure, moving on to another location and to another position, and you say, you know what, I kind of like where I'm working, it's a lot easier, right? And whatever that is, but we have these moments where we want to refuse that call to adventure simply because, quite frankly, it's easy to stay where you are, right? And as one of my mentors, Jordan Peterson, would say, we often don't think about the cost of staying where we are. And so we think that there's only the benefit to us. We don't realize the cost and the price that it takes on our soul, perhaps, of staying in that same place. Okay, so these are the first two main steps. And we have some scenes from some films. So maybe many of us have seen Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings and recognize these very particular scenes. I really love Mulan as well. And you know, that scene where her father is called to fight against the Huns or the Mongolians, where there's this major call to adventure for everyone. So moving on, in the next couple of steps, we have the supernatural aid. And this meeting today and the people who have chosen to attend is a bit of a supernatural aid for my own call to adventure. Because I wasn't quite sure. I thought, with a personal growth meetup group, does it really make sense to talk about the initiation, the first few steps? If anyone has experience with those steps, it's got to be people interested in personal growth. But lo and behold, getting to know and hear each and one of your stories and just catching up with what's going on in your life, it seems like many of us are in a particular stage, very much at the start of the hero's journey, right? So Alex, like, you're considering a new job. Annika as well, you don't know what the future is going to hold for the next few months. For Trent, Stephanie, and I, we're going to move out of this house next month, which is it's like nerve-wracking. It's exciting. For Fahad, you just started a new job, right? Jenny, you're in 2-3 months are going to be living in a different country, right? And,
Yeah, I'm gone.
And for Peter and Wendy, you know, I didn't get to hear too much of your stories, but I'm sure there's something going on in your life right now that's calling to you, right? And so the supernatural aid for me is that all of a sudden, although we don't have many guests here today, I have just about everybody in this room who is starting a new hero's journey. And I can say with quite certainty that when I was traveling through Israel, to be honest, I think of some of these individuals as true angels, that God sent them into my life so that they could manifest a change within me to be the man I am today. And I'm forever grateful for it. But you know, and we have some more of these scenes. So Harry, he lives with two parents who do not want him going to Hogwarts, accepting the invitation to become a wizard. And, you know, he has Hagrid show up and kick the door down and say, nope, you're coming to Hogwarts. You are not staying home, right? And same with Mulan, you know, her ancestors bring to life the spirit of this dragon, although he's small and not very formidable, but he is a voice of reason for her and he guides her. And so it may seem magical and fantastical, but I do say with certainty that the supernatural aid is real and it exists. And when you start moving on to this hero's journey in following this adventure, pieces of your life, pieces of your environment come together to assist you on that path and to encourage you there. The last step we will be discussing today is crossing that threshold, right? So when you do make that decision, right? So for the members of this house recently, when we got that email of like, hey, your application's been accepted, you know, I was sitting at school in the middle of my work day and going, uh-oh, that means I'm gonna have to start packing up, like as the year is ending. So I gotta pack up my classroom and I gotta pack up my house here as well. And we're all gonna move over. And it's like, you know, it takes you back, right? And again, that going back to that previous step of refusing the call, it certainly exists that when life tasks you with more responsibility and a bigger burden, there's this desire to push it away and stay within our shell, because again, we like our shell, right? Our shell protects us. And when we break out of it, we expose that new growth to the air, and the air can be very, especially living in Edmonton, Alberta, we all know how bad the air can be, especially in winter. It can really hurt. And so at some point in your journey, you will cross the threshold where you've left behind what you had, and you're now in the midst of what you are going into. And it is a scary period, but again, as that third step suggests, the more you continue on this adventure, the more help will come to guide you. Okay, so we're not going to go over the other aspects of the hero's journey. I simply don't have enough time. My students on Tuesday will hear all about it though, because I'll present this to them. But some of the implications and the applications of the hero's journey is that it's quite literally an adventure you can go on. It's easiest to see it in the games we play or in the movies we watch, and it's a bit more difficult and challenging to see it in our own lives. We can potentially see it in someone else's life. You know, we see our friends grow into something that we don't even recognize anymore, and in a good way, right? Not when people become a monster because they had one or two extra drinks, but and I will wrap this up with saying that you can choose to not go on the adventure, but you should ask yourself, like, what better is there to do in life than to go on that adventure and to become the best version of yourself? And this is the last slide that I'll leave you with. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions? Does anyone want to ask anything or share anything?
What has studying the hero's journey done for you?
What has studying the hero's journey done for me? So studying the hero's journey has helped me to help students and the people that I work with point out and figure out where they're at. And I find that that's quite helpful, because then I can encourage them in a unique way of what could come next, or how to keep going, how to not lose hope and despair. For my own life, applying that knowledge of the hero's journey comes from self-reflection, right? I mean, we're so busy with our mundane day-to-day activities. You know, for me, I just go to school, I show up, the plan's all up here, right? Whatever we're gonna do. But it's not until we have those moments where a student comes up to us. So my school just had the grad ceremony on Friday, and so there was a dance and there was a whole ceremony, and I had a really good time dancing with the kids, and I was encouraging as many of them to dance with one another. We'd get into a big circle, we'd dance battle, and the dance battles would end, and I'd jump into the middle and start pulling kids in, and we'd dance in the middle. And it's not until you reflect at the moment at the end of the night when a student comes up to you and says, hey, thank you for making this night special. Thank you for making this night happen. So knowing that knowledge of the hero's journey, having that self-reflection of knowing that what am I actually doing right now that suggests that I'm on a hero's journey, because it's very easy for me to get caught up in the responsibilities of being an adult and being tasked by my vice principal to have to babysit some of the more difficult students. Learning that hero's journey helps me to also emotionally regulate so that I don't get too caught up in their struggle in whatever is bothering me that day, and to remind myself of the bigger picture as well. Okay. I think we'll end it there unless anyone has any other questions.
That was good.
Thank you. Do you want to hit the stop button?